In this example, we're going to look at absolute value, opposites, and ordering with chips. So we've already looked at these concepts with the number line, but again, it's useful to have more than one way to visualize these ideas. So here's the chip representation for 1, 2, 3, 4, positive 4. Just going to write positive 4 here. So the absolute value, remember, is the number's distance from 0, but we could think of that as the same amount of chips, but the chip should be positive, since absolute value is always positive. So here, the chip representation of the absolute value of positive 4 is 4 positive chips, and notice it's identical to the chip representation of the number itself. The chip representation of the opposite would be the same number of chips, but you'd want to take the opposite chip for each one. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4 negative chips. Now here we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 negative chips, or negative 6. Since the absolute value is always positive, the absolute value of this is the equivalent number of chips, but all of the chips would be positive. So 6 positive chips. Now looking at the chip representation of the opposite, it would be changing all of these negative chips to positive chips. So each negative is replaced with a positive chip, and we have 6 positive chips. So something to notice is that absolute values and opposites are different depending on what you start with. So if you start with a positive number, the absolute value is positive and the opposite is negative. If you start with a negative number, the absolute value is positive and the opposite is also positive. Let's look at this last example and use this to order the numbers from least to greatest. So notice here we have 3 chips, 4 chips, 6 chips, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 chips, but we can't just look at the number of chips because when we're ordering from least to greatest, we also want to consider the sign of the chips. So first I'm going to write this is 4, positive 4, this is 5, this is negative 3, and this is negative 6. So if we want to order these from least to greatest, remember negative numbers are always less than positive numbers. And the more negative chips you have, the less you are relative to other chips. So negative 6 chips is actually the least number in this list. Then we have the other amount of negative chips, which is negative 3. Now we can move on to the positive chips, and remember a smaller amount of positive chips is less than a greater number of positive chips, which is the reverse for negatives. So we'll put 4 is next, and then 5. So the ordering is negative 6, negative 3, 4, and then 5.